Hi, this is Kurt Kaufman, and I'm going to talk about how I took my critical thinking assignment and designed into it the integrative piece of the new assessment process. So I teach Biology 101, which is plant and animal biology, also known as redneck biology, and we have a lot of fun in there. And I do a critical thinking assignment where they read a case study on urban deer populations, and you see here on the screen too many deer, and it's actually a case study of what they did with Wesselman Woods down in Evansville. And so the way the critical thinking assignment goes is I show them a couple of videos that are related to urban deer, and then we jump into the case study, and they read through this case study, as you can see here, and gives them some background. I also showed them a map of Wesselman Woods and in this greater Evansville area so they can see that. And then they open with some study questions that gets them into discussion. So they talk about that. It gets them thinking about this issue. And then we do a role play. We role play an actual public hearing where this is the actual public hearing that took place in 1998, and they get to role play the different parts. The names have been changed, but these are actual quotes, and the role play goes really well. They get to hear all kinds of different sides to the story from people who, like Billy Bob here, who has killed more than 50 deer, to Cheryl Lee, who's a 16-year-old cheerleader who read Bambi and plans on cheering about Bambi haters, and that they are not so good. And so they get and then there's a lot of different points of view in between. Once we do that, we go through that. We continue the critical thinking piece where I break the class into groups, and we do what is called the tug sheet. The tug sheet is a handout that's been developed for a lot of critical thinking assignments, and where it takes them, where they work together, and it really helps them get their thoughts on paper to help them answer the questions for the critical thinking assignment. So, what is the question? Why is the question important? What are the two main viewpoints to that question? And they write them down here. We call this tug sheet because it's like a tug of war. What are different components of this viewpoint that would tug you in this direction? What are things regarding this viewpoint that would tug you in this direction? What are some shades of gray? What are things about this issue that may not necessarily fit either side? And then they write about what is their viewpoint. What's the context of their own viewpoint? And then they flip the page, which I'm going to do here, and they also write down any relevant facts, questions that they still may need to know. Then they discuss who the stakeholders are. Who are stakeholders that are affected by this, and what's the context of that stakeholder? What's kind of the bioethical principle that's being given priority by this particular stakeholder. Now, I usually have them split this into multiple rows because 4 boxes usually isn't enough. But again, it allows them to get their thoughts on paper. Then what they have to do, there it is in the critical thinking assignment, they are what I did this year was the critical thinking assignment is 9 questions, and then I added a 10th question, which is question 2 here for the integrative. And so the critical thinking itself asks what's the dilemma, what's your viewpoint, how and why do your different viewpoints or contexts influence why do your different contexts influence your viewpoint? What factual information supports your viewpoint? How do the stakeholders and their context support your viewpoint? Describe viewpoints on the issue that's different from yours. what factual information supports your opposing viewpoint, and then explain those stakeholders and their context. And then if your viewpoint was followed, what would be the implications and consequences? And then they also have to have at least 4 sources that they cite and that they can use within this paper as well. So they're answering the questions. They do have to find 4 sources, and so they have to bring in outside information. The integrative piece was where we're giving them some data so they find out what actually happened after the meeting. And what I did in the fall was they were given data and information on the first 2 years of the deer herd reduction. And then they had to create a graph, label it, and put it into a Word document. And then they answered these 4 questions based on the age and gender of the deer. What assumptions can you make? Is the director right that they need to continue to hunt the deer? Is the director correct that they're only killing young deer? What do you predict will be the long-term consequences? So all that's based on data that they're giving, which is on this page here, where they're given a summary from the director of Wesselman Woods that talks about the deer removal in 98, 99, and then later on in 99, 2000, and then different information on what has happened since that and the recommendations of what to do after that. So again, this is integrating their ability to take information and try to make conclusions from that. It included making a graph. And what happened was the biggest problem with this assignment was students really struggled with making a graph. A lot of them just recreated the data table. Some did make excellent graphs. Others completely avoided this question. They just simply left it out and did the other 9. So probably about 30% of the students did not do question 2 at all, even though they did the rest of the assignment. And question 2 was worth 10 points. Out of the total 50. So that created a problem, and that allowed me to think about what to do. So what I plan on doing this next time around is I've changed the number. I've changed where that question is. It's actually at the bottom. And instead of having them make a graph, I'm going to give them the data and actually create a graph for them, so they still have to interpret the data. And I've changed the questions a little bit because the questions didn't really get to the answers I was hoping for. So you can see the questions here and you can read them on your own time. But I've made the questions a little, not quite leading, but maybe more in the direction of what I want them to do, to think about why the deer hunt may need to continue and why young deer are being the ones that are being taken out and not the older deer. And that's what I'm doing. So if you have any questions about this or you want any help, if you haven't seen the integrative rubric, this is it here, and I will be glad to sit down and help you with this if you have any questions. My phone number is 888-4373, or you can email me at ckaufman@vinu.edu. But I wish you the best, and take care.